We are so excited to have this true Roswell author here. It's not just Atlanta authors, right? A true local, and I know we're all very excited to hear from him. Atlanta Authors is supported by Bookmiser and the Friends of the Roswell Library. Let's give those folks a real big round of applause. We're so happy to host you here in the Cultural Arts Center. I thought this was a neat idea that our team came up with in conjunction with the folks from Atlanta Authors to take advantage of the beautiful lobby space here and have this be a much more open and intimate discussion rather than having it down in the B-side. So I hope you enjoy this, and if this is something that maybe we will continue to do. Again, folks, if you would just raise your hand if you have seats near you, that some of our folks, as they trickle in, can find a place. We do have some wonderful, exciting things coming up that I want to tell you about. I think that you would enjoy. Next Saturday on the center stage, we have our first ever Lunar New Year's concert event. It's called Journey Through Time. We're welcoming the music group Magic Eastern Ensemble here for the very first time. And this is something we hope can be an annual tradition. As we've kicked off our new year, we're going to be kicking off the Lunar New Year as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Also, February for the last quarter century has been a commitment by the city of Roswell to Black History Month through the Roswell Roots Festival. And this year is absolutely no exception. We are boasting over a 25-day period, 24 events that we've coordinated ourselves and with local partners through the Roswell Roots Committee. I have brochures that I would love for you to pick up on your way out that talk about all the events, but let me highlight just a few things. Some things that are very different. We have Blacktop Improv Comedy on February 1st. Tickets are only $10. They're going to be right here on the center stage. They're the nation's leading African-American improv comedy group. And it's going to be a family-friendly night of comedy. So come on out, have a great time. Also, too, Atlanta Authors has partnered with us for this Roswell Roots Festival. They are bringing former DeKalb County CEO Michael Thurman. And he wrote a wonderful book called James Oglethorpe, Father of Georgia. It's an interesting story because someone said to him, well, you know, Oglethorpe was an abolitionist. And he's like, no, he wasn't. And he went on to try and prove himself right. And what he found is that Oglethorpe had a tremendous transformation while he was here. And so his book sort of chronicles that, and it's going to be a really great discussion. We definitely don't want you to miss that. Also, too, I know you guys are thirsty for knowledge. We have a wonderful local filmmaker who's put together a film about Alonzo Herndon, the first black millionaire in Atlanta. And we're going to have that. Both of these events are absolutely free. There's going to be a panel discussion with the filmmaker and Atlanta Regional Commission Chair Doug Hooker and Reverend Christopher Todd from Zion Missionary Baptist Church to talk about entrepreneurship in the African American community. So again, really great events coming up. And of course, our festival headliner, Ruben Studdard. And so that's, like I said, I mean, I think I've just packed you in on February on some great events. And there's like 20 more that you could attend and be a part of. And be a part of this community and learn and be together. And it's going to be a wonderful thing. So thank you so much for all of that. We have a lot of exciting stuff throughout the year. But without any further ado, it is my pleasure. Help me welcome Atlanta Authors and Will Carter.
I'm not Will Carter. And also, Al has a booming voice. I don't know. We don't have a mic, so let me know if I'm speaking loud enough. Okay, good afternoon and welcome to today's Atlanta Authors event. My name is Marilyn Barron, and I'm your host for today's presentation. I apologize for the inconvenience. We had to reschedule because of the snow, but I'm glad you're all here. It's probably going to rain, but we welcome you and thank you for being here. So today we will welcome Will Carter, debut author of Getting Better. I've read and enjoyed Will's book, and I'm looking forward to hearing him talk more about it. He's going to be in conversation with an award-winning author, Christopher Martin. Chris is the author of the poetry collection Firmament and the essay collection This Gladdening Light. He is also the author of 3 poetry chapbooks. Before we get started, there's a few housekeeping items. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end for any questions you have for Will and Chris. And if you haven't already, please sign the attendance form that's going around. Good news, Atlanta Authors is now on Facebook, so sign up to learn about our upcoming author events, as well as other local, what the local authors that we've had before, what they're doing now, so we can keep you updated. And we also have a YouTube channel. So we record all our shows, so you can go back and see what you've missed and listen to it. Atlanta Authors has been holding author events at the Roswell Library, the Cultural Arts Center, and virtually for the last 16 years. And the list of over 70 authors that we've hosted is very impressive. So I want to thank the Atlanta Authors Committee. Many of them are here today, which include myself, Luke Conti, Debbie Weiss, Deanna Smith, Diane Stevenson, Kathy Chiaffi, George Weinstein with the Atlanta Writers Club, Judy Stanton, and the owner of our favorite local bookstore, the book miser herself, Annelle Gerson. Atlanta Authors is sponsored by Friends of the Roswell Library. We couldn't hold our programs without their unwavering support. We also appreciate additional support from the Roswell Cultural Arts Center and Friends of the East Roswell Library. Plus, we work in association with Roswell Reads, which they'll be celebrating their 20th anniversary this year. We have an upcoming author, Jennifer Coburn, who's going to be speaking about her latest book, The Girls of the Glimmer Factory, Saturday, February 1st at 2 p.m. at the Roswell Library. And you can go on roswellreads.com and find out more information about her. Copies of Will's novel, as well as Chris's books, are available for purchase with Book Miser right beyond me to the right. Book Miser is located at 3822 Roswell Road in East Cobb. It's less than a 10-minute drive from here. Before we introduce today's authors, the Friends of the Roswell Library would like to let you know that they're having a book sale coming up. Friday, there's a lot of dates. But you can get with me afterwards if you don't remember all of them. I've got a list. Okay. Friday, February 7th from 10:30 to 5:30. Saturday, February 8th from 10 to 5:30. Monday, February 10th from 10 to 12. The sale will be held at the Roswell Library. And then the Friends of the East Roswell Library will also be having a book sale at a new location, 1575 Old Alabama Road in Roswell at Holcomb Bridge Crossing, in the same complex as Chamberlain's Chocolate. I don't know where that is, but I'd like to have some right now. And Omni Fight Club. The days and hours are Friday, February 14th and Saturday, February 15th from 10 to 6, Sunday, February 16th, noon to 4, Saturday, February 22nd from 10 to 6, and Sunday, February 23rd from noon to 4. And now, here to introduce our guest is the wonderful Annelle Gerson. And she gives the best introductions.
Thank you. It's here. You sit wherever you want. If you want to be here, if you want to be here. Well, I don't need a microphone either. Ex-teacher, you know how we are. I always like to begin by thanking you all for being here today. There are so many places you could be, and you chose to be here. So we thank you, all of us, for the privilege of your time. I have the incredible honor of introducing two outstanding Georgia literary talents. First, Will Carter, whose book, Getting Better, we celebrate today. And second, as you heard from Marilyn, a remarkable poet and essayist, our moderator, Christopher Martin. So as Marilyn told us, Christopher Martin has written numerous books, Firmament, which won the Wandering Angus Book Award, and the essay collection, This Gladdening Light, which won Georgia Author of the Year Award in memoir, and the Will D. Campbell Award. Christopher teaches composition, literature, and creative writing at Kennesaw State University. Thank you, Christopher, for guiding our discussion today. We really appreciate it. And as for Will Carter, by today's end, I think you will agree, he is a miracle in many ways. Not to give anything away, but during his senior year of high school, against all odds, he survived an unimaginable accident and still graduated from Roswell High School, went on to get a Bachelor of Arts in Playwriting from Oglethorpe University, a Master of Fine Arts in Playwriting from Boston University, and a Master of Arts in Teaching from the University of Louisville. He's an English instructor at KSU, an inspirational speaker, and an amazing author. His nonfiction articles have been published in numerous magazines and editions, including his View from Home, Uncomfortable Revolution, The Purpled Nail, that's a title, right? The Purpled Nail, Brain Injury Hope magazine, and as I said, other publications. And we are gathered here today to celebrate getting better. As I prepared this introduction, I kept thinking of a familiar quote by Dieter Uchtdorf about adversity. And he says, "It is your reaction to adversity and not the adversity itself that determines how your life story will develop." Will's book is about just that, his reaction to adversity. So I'm going to turn things over to Chris to lead us through Will's remarkable journey.
Thank you. Congratulations, Will. First and foremost, I'm incredibly happy for my friend. I just wanted to say first and foremost that I'm honored. I was tremendously honored when Will asked me to be here. I'm honored to be here to be part of this. This is Will's celebration. Obviously, I'm glad to be part of it. I'm happy for Will, and I'm honored to be here. I'm primarily here as a friend and a fan, like so many of y'all are. In so much as I am moderating this. I intend to moderate in moderation. I want this to go whatever direction Will wants to take it, whatever spotlights y'all want to put on him. This is his celebration, like I said. But then also, in so much as to moderate means to keep under control. I cannot make those kinds of guarantees with somebody like Will as the featured author. So, but yeah, I'm honored to be here, and I'm so happy for my friend. Just briefly, I want to get right into the book, but I wanted to say up front that Will, Will is one of the most genuine guys I've ever met. I do consider him a genuine good friend. He has been incredibly supportive of me, encouraging to me. So I'm happy to be here for him today, just in that capacity. We've known each other. I was thinking about this morning. I hadn't quite. It just hit me this morning. We've known each other close to about 10 years now. I met each other at Kennesaw State, where we worked together. I'm a friend, a fan, also a colleague. We worked together at Kennesaw State. Started there as adjuncts teaching composition literature classes in the English department, and we both kind of worked our way up simultaneously into the careers that we have now. So we've been there kind of by each other's sides all along the way, and I really look up to Will, really admire Will, and I guess, excuse me, I guess one other thing to say before getting into this one, just outside of my own perceptions of Will, this happens just about every semester, and I think it's just a testament to who Will is. Primarily we teach the freshman composition classes, the English 1101s, 1102s, the ones that everybody's got to take regardless what their major is. So I often have students in my English 1102 classes. Those are typically in the spring. In those classes, I'll often have students, like when we're doing introductions and I'm getting to know them and they're getting to know each other and that kind of thing. Inevitably, several of them will say that they had, this happens just about every semester, it's at least somebody in the class, sometimes a few, will say that they had Will as their English 1101 teacher the previous semester, and they wanted to get into his class, but they weren't able to do so because it just fills up so quickly.
Encouraging for you.
So they end up stuck with me, but that's just a tribute to who he is.
I do want to cut in for the reason why they take Chris is because when I have students who have like, oh, I can't get in, I say to them, you got to take Chris Martin. So I mean, this is an excellent professor.
It's kind of symbiotic in that regard. I do the same, I guess. But yeah, for real, I'm honored to be here. All right. Yeah. First question. It's just kind of the general, where did the book emerge from? How did the book take shape over time from the origins of it, the seeds of it, when it was an idea, or maybe even before you could articulate it as an idea? How did the book take shape over time, from its origins as an idea to writing it and then eventually finding publication for it?
Yeah, I think like I always tried to write it when I was in college because I had my freshman year at Oglethorpe, I took a autobiography class, but it never worked because I kept trying to write it to sound smart. You know, at 18, 19, you know, you're not quite at the place, like you're writing for other people to validate. And I think that never worked. And then what actually happened for me is I had a pacemaker put in because I have bradycardia, I have half a heartbeat. And I got the pacemaker put in and I go, wow. And I went from 35 to 70. So that is a difference. And I just felt called, I'd say by the Spirit of God, to write my story. And honestly, I just started writing it. And what I did first is I put down, okay, here are the key moments. And then whenever I could grab 20 minutes, just start writing it. And then I just did it. One swoop. And it was incredibly therapeutic, incredibly helpful, and I think what was good is while I was writing it, I was also trying to build social media, because what they will tell you is, and I got told this many times when I was trying to get it published, great book, love the book, you don't have enough of a following. Yeah. Awesome book. Yeah, you need more social media, you need more of a presence. And so I was doing that, but what was great about that is I was interviewing brain injury and stroke survivors, and it became a help for others. And I think what I've really gotten to see for my book is that it's not about me being seen a certain way. It's how can I tell my story to help somebody else? You know, I floored, I say this with humility, not with boasting, floored when I have Instagram messages from people that are like, thank you for helping me like love myself in my stroke recovery journey. And so that's what I hope something like this can do.
I want to kind of, I've got some questions written down here. I'll respond conversationally. You mentioned calling, feeling called by God. I was wondering if you could or just go a little bit deeper with that. Like, what do you mean by that? How did that specifically look like for you? Because that's a term, phrase we hear often, and it might mean different things to different folks. I was wondering if you
burning bush. No.
Yeah.
No, I had.
You're on top of sign.
That's right. After I sacrificed a bull. Just feeling hearing the voice of God, and just I guess I can speak to this, is this feeling of. And I was just reading Judges, so this is why this is on my mind. But I was blown away reading. I'm working through the Bible in a year, and I was reading Judges, and Samson exposing himself, or cutting off his hair. I mean, not exposing himself, exposing his very different, exposing his secret for where his strength comes from. He reveals it because Delilah just bothers him so much. And for me, I don't want to equate that to the Holy Spirit, but I wrote this book because I just kept getting bothered. Do you know what I mean? The Holy Spirit just would not let up. Just, you should write your story. You should write your story. You should write your story. And I wish I could say that it was, a voice from heaven or something, but just hearing and feeling that from God just daily. And I think having that, this is going to sound maybe weird, but going from a 35 to a 70 heartbeat, the 70 heartbeat enabled me to hear that voice clear. And so just feeling like, okay, all right already. Do it.
I was wondering if you could read a selection from it.
Yeah.
If there's a particular, just wide open, whatever. If you want to set it up as far as like why that particular section is, you want to share it now. But I was wondering if you could read it.
I actually the thing that I want to read, because I think this is super important to set up, is I want to read the introduction.
Okay.
For how this how I want my book to be read and understood. So I'll just read the introduction. It's about 3 pages, but I think this will be helpful for understanding. This is on memory, an introduction. This is not a story about what happened or how things were. This is not a story of things corroborated or cross-referenced. This is not even a story that attempts to be accurate. This is my story as I remember it. Honestly, no one's story is ever what happened. We only have our experience of events. We can only access how something happened to us, how we experienced it, or how we saw the moment through our specific lens of perception. Our only access to life is through our experience. Each person's story told by a different narrator. So who cares what actually happened? Who cares how things really were? Who cares if that is what he was wearing, or if that's what she really said, or on and on and on? My story is my experience of it, and no one can tell me otherwise. I, for one, have a unique perspective on this. On October 7th, 2007, I was involved in a car accident. suffered a brain injury, and was put in a medically induced coma. The funny thing about coma drugs is they make you forget. This, of course, is a good thing. You don't want to remember the accident, remember the blood, the pain, the twisted metal, the shattered glass, all the hospital lights and desperate operations that followed. Nobody needs pain like that taking up valuable space in their memory. Coma drugs are non-discriminatory, though. They can take a swipe at everything around the event that put the person in the coma. They don't care. Even if the event happened several months before the coma, even if an event happened several months before the coma, the memory of it is either fuzzy or gone. My car accident, my injury, my recovery, this pivotal moment in my life is a foggy and misremembered collection of stories I have been told and ones I have unintentionally made up. See, years after my accident, when I was working on my thesis play about a couple dealing with their son's brain injury, I told my parents things I remembered from the hospital, stories, people who came, or things that were said, and I was told that it didn't happen, or it didn't happen like that, or they didn't come by, or they didn't say that. I am an unreliable narrator. Now, I do not fully remember waking up from a coma, and to be frank, I don't really remember a good bit after. I hardly remember my first year of college, the summer that preceded it, or even the months of my senior year of high school before the accident. There are colors and faces, but they're in streaks or underwater, visible yet completely unclear. Wispy grasps of moments, snatches of memory, nothing tangible. It's strange to have a recollection of almost 2 years like this. A memory that feels like a chipped and peeling mosaic on the wall of an old Italian church. This is not a story about what happened because it cannot be. I cannot trust what I remember, and there are gaps. Oh, there are gaps. No one has an objective take on the past. Experience is clouded by one's own bias. Things get deleted, repeated, mistaken, misremembered, and on and on. There is no truth of the kind we are comfortable with that exists. But what good is that? Your story is what you have lived with. Your story is the one your conscious and unconscious mind teamed up to develop in order to steer you through this confusing thing called life. This is not an invitation to throw out the idea of truth. That is only to say, when it comes to our stories, I don't know how useful the idea of truth is. However, the question of truth, of narrative, is everything we all face. If you've had someone correct your story, you understand. The frustration of another human being telling you what happened is almost unbearable. Even if you're wrong, it takes reminding yourself of every terrible prison, movie, TV show, and documentary in order not to murder them right then and there. You don't say, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize for my error. It seems some of the details of my story are not what some might consider correct. No! If you have even a drop of humanity, your mind screams, blood filling your face red, it's my story, butt out. Because it is your story. If you've misremembered, or if you've remembered something wrong, okay, somebody else can give their story, as long as, of course, it is not in the middle of your story. My memory is an imperfect thing, but the story I have lived and created myself too has been crafted by this strange, uncertain thing. What are we to do? Pick up the pieces and let our story take the lead, falling and failing all the while. I cannot remember correctly, but I can hand you a raggedy quilt of stitched together, mistaken and fraying versions of events, and hope it will do you good. My story is unreliable, but it's the only one I have. Enjoy.
A couple questions, just kind of responding to that. And I had one general question anyway, so I'm glad that you read the introduction. Everything that you said in there was super.
We just planned this,
yeah. Everything you said in there was, well, role of memory in memoir. This memoir, reflections on memory in your introduction, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could specify, was there a time like in the actual, like getting down to like the nuts and bolts, the craft of writing it, is there a time you can specify when what you just read and spoke about in the introduction, did that ever get in the way? Like, to what extent was that an obstacle that needed to be overcome, or is it simple as you said, like this is my story, this is what it is. I talked about this in the introduction. I was just going to refer you back to everything that I said, or was there ever a time where you like really needed to corroborate or get other perspectives and like practically, how did that manifest?
Yeah, I think like, I mean, I gotten from my parents many stories from my accident. And I guess I remember corroborating, especially like, okay, who are the doctors, right, for the coma? Because there's a chapter on the coma and I don't quite have access to that. But I think that's actually, writing the introduction was the first thing I wrote from the book. And I think what was helpful for that is I always struggled with writing the story. Another reason I struggled was because I don't know if this is, I have a memory, but is this reliable? But I had to come to, I don't know, this was said to me yesterday, and I think it was an apt way to look at it. I'm not drawing a comparison between myself and Tim O'Brien, but Tim O'Brien speaks about truth and story truth. Mm-hmm. And I think for the sake of my own ability to write this, I had to go with story truth. Like, there is the objective reality of events, and then there's the story I have in my head. And honestly, I'm writing a memoir, not a nonfiction book. So I had to accept. And like they said, that took a long time. Like, it wasn't oh yeah, no problem. It was, okay, if I write this, I'm gonna get some things wrong. And I have to be okay with that. Does that answer what you were thinking?
I guess along these same lines, it really interested me. I thought it was an effective way to begin the book with that introduction, is talking about that theme of memory and how it comes up in just such a literal way. I guess what struck me about the introduction was that this concept of an unreliable narrator, the role of memory in memoir and creative nonfiction writing, essay writing, that kind of thing, the degree to which things need to exactly align with what actually happened. Those things, I don't want to go so far as to call them cliches, but they come up, that line of discussion comes up time and again when you're talking about the craft of creative nonfiction, writing memoirs, that kind of a thing. And what I love, I'll try to get a question out of this. What I loved about that introduction is the way that you kind of take that and kind of turn it all on its head in a way, make it like kind of, it goes beyond just, I guess what I'm getting at, that's the first time I've ever read, like you've always like taught to be on the lookout for unreliable narrators, to understand yourself as an unreliable narrator when you're writing, but I've never seen that, at least I've been trying to think all day, I've never seen a statement like that point blank, an author coming out and saying, I am an unreliable narrator, to that extent. So I really like the way that you kind of took that common discussion point, debate, if you want to go so far as to call it a debate about like truth versus fact and that kind of a thing. I like the way that I thought it was really effective the way that you embraced that and took it and named it and claimed it right there at the very beginning.
Thank you. I think like it kind of wanted to head off at the past anybody who would say that's not how that happened. You know, if that makes sense. Like, in order to write this, I had to lay that anxiety to bed.
You mentioned Tim O'Brien. Are there any others that you turn to, like in kind of parsing out the distinctions between truth, fact, memory versus what literally happened at a specific moment in time?
Yeah, I think for me, the book that was helpful, and not as much the book as knowing her and having been her student, Jessica Handler has a book, Braving the Fire, which is about writing about grief and loss. And that was incredibly helpful because, you know, part of trauma is, I'm going to delete that, your brain taking over. And so I feel like getting permission from her in that way. And I can't think of a specific passage, but I am sure I owe something to Anne Lamott. You know, I'm sure I do. Of course, like many of us writers and readers, Bird by Bird is, you know, one of the best. And I think, well, you know what I can say, and pardon my French, I am naming the title of an essay, Shitty First Drafts. Yeah, and I think like what was helpful for me there is just get it on the page. And I think, you know, because she's like, just write the bad first draft. Just write it. Everybody writes it. She's like, I am a famous author. I've written so many terrible first drafts. Just get it on the page. And for me, I think that's what I had to do with my memory, is I didn't have the form of a book. I just got it on the page, and then I realized that I had a book, if that makes sense.
I'm glad you read the introduction. I was wanting to ask too if you could read not something super long, but just a scene. And the one that I was, if this helps, I could recommend just the opening scene when you're waking up.
Yeah, from the coma.
Yeah, I had a question that kind of springs from that particular moment. But if there's a different scene that you'd rather.
Sure. You think just the beginning of that chapter?
Yeah, just up through here in Chicago.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Who is Will going to be? Beep, swish, beep, beep, swish, beep. Dad bows his head, his shoulders forward, his chin on his gut. He rests his goatee on his blue and gray striped button-up, wrinkled, folded. He looks down, taking in the music on the stereo next to his son's hospital bed, as the ventilator and the heart monitor offer a steady tempo. Beep, swish, beep. Give me peace. Beep, swish, beep. Give me peace for who he is when he wakes up. Beep, swish, beep. Whenever he wakes up. Beep, swish, beep. Then the light taps of the xylophones as the beginning of Sufjan Stevens' Chicago filter through the stereo. As the violins kick in, my heart's beat gets a little faster. Through there, a little bit more. Okay, yeah. Dad drops his head, defeated. Eyelids flutter, my mouth moves ever so slightly as the drums pick up. I can't talk with a trach in. I'm not fully conscious, drugged up and out of it, but for the first time in 2.5 weeks, I'm awake. I am awake. I am confused at the pain in my head, but I am awake. My parents cry, hugging each other, as the nurses and doctor rush in, and the music of Sufjan Stevens fills the room. All things go, to recreate us, all things grow.
Reading that, just that opening, it gave me the chills, like goosebumps. That's a song, the Sufjan Stevens Chicago is a song that has gotten me through. Like I've always have it cranked up. It's one of the constants. It's always cranked up in the headphones, help get me through. That particular scene, among others, the mountain goats come up. There's several literary references, biblical references, so on and so forth. I was wondering if you could speak to certainly the literary inspirations and the literary influences and the other pieces of art that you're bouncing your ideas off of and pulling from, such as Chicago in that beautiful scene. Yeah, I was just wondering if you could speak to any literary, artistic, creative influences and inspirations, and then the degree to which any of those might have specifically worked their way into the book itself.
Yeah, I mean, Sufjan is a huge inspiration. I'm very thankful to my parents for playing such a cinematic song for me to wake up to. Thank you for planning that. If you don't know Chicago, it's a phenomenal song, like Chris said, but it's strings and drums, and it is. If there was ever a movie, somebody, it would be the perfect song to wake up to because it is so beautiful. And Sufjan, definitely. I mean, that album, I played that album on repeat. In the year before my accident, and I've played that after. And I think the thing, as much as I love Illinois, Come On Feel Illinois, where that song comes from, Carrie and Lowell probably got me more of that. So Carrie and Lowell is the album that Sufjan wrote about the death of his parents, and I think like that got me more inspiration from that. And then the Mountain Goats, John Darnell is a huge influence. The album Tallahassee and Sunset Tree. I've probably even stolen lyrics unintentionally. John Darnell is such a master lyricist. But the other one, because I say the one about death of his parents, because the thing, this is not necessarily art, but it is beautiful if you've never seen it. Stephen Colbert getting interviewed by Anderson Cooper talking about grief. Both of them lost their dad when they were 10 years old. Stephen Colbert lost his dad to his brothers. And I think what that enabled me to do was to realize that I had grief, and I had grief that had not been addressed. And I think that this was a way to address that. But yeah, I mean, if you know, I mean, it's Stephen Colbert is who I like. Is my like desired person to be. He's obviously hilarious, but then he drops in these obscure literary references. Yeah.
So just on this note of like literary connections, I was wondering if you could speak about your background as a playwright and the degree to which that part of your creative identity might have factored into this book. I know, for example, that your MFA thesis was a play that deals with similar themes, similar terrain. So I was wondering if you could speak to the connections between writing plays, writing this memoir, how you see those things working together and divergent.
Yeah, I think and that's another reason why I didn't write this memoir for a long time. I'm not an author. I'm a playwright. And and you put yourself in this box of this is what I do, this is my skill set. this is my strength, these are my weaknesses, and I definitely, my playwriting is in this because I do enjoy dialogue. I think that is something that I very much enjoy, even writing the memoir, like coming up with those conversations. But I think the play is, and my parents would want me to stress this, because the play that I wrote focuses on parents whose son has been in an accident. The parents in that play are not my parents. I want to stress that. Very much not my parents. But I think it's that subject of grief. I think what that play deals with is the grief that these two people have, these two parents have over where their son's at. And again, this is where we diverge from truth, the grief over their marriage, that is in a very, very tenuous place. So, but I think like writing that first gave me confidence that I could write about brain injuries, because I used to think that no one would understand. No one would relate to my writing, because this brain injury thing is so unique. And I'm going to shout her out. And my aunt right over there, my Aunt Nancy over there said, "You're crazy. Everybody can relate to this." And so I think that play, as much as it was me not wanting to write the memoir, enabled me to write the memoir. That makes sense.
You want to open the Russian question?
Okay, sure thing. All right. Take any questions?
How would you say, Will, that humor has kind of comes into play in your writing process, and especially at how you go through your day-to-day life?
Oh yes, I mean humor is for those of you who know, it's part of my everyday life. It is thanks to my father. I say that because we both have the unfortunate feature of seeing many jokes in the world. No, but I think humor is a coping mechanism. And it was definitely one for me after my accident of I can be funny and then I don't have to be serious. So I don't have to be vulnerable to put myself out there and get rejected. I can just be funny. And I think humor is in this without a doubt. And I think what I was very happy as I worked with my editor is that it was seen. That there's lots of humor there, and I think that's because it's me. I will tell you this. This is a little bit of disabled humor for you. No, my ringtone on my phone was given to me by a student when I taught high school. They walked into my classroom, they looked at me and they go, "When your legs don't work like they used to before." And I was like, that is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Yes. But I think that I've said this many times. I've had this conversation recently with somebody about, right, I cannot stand things that are one note. What I mean by that is a movie that is sad, that is just sad. Because that's not how life works. We crack some of our best jokes during the hardest times. And so I think that played in here was just as I remembered the hard times, also remembering the jokes, but also just as I worked through the hard feelings and the hard moments, that humor had to come out. Does that?
Yep.
Okay, glorious. Glorious.
Any others?
I have one. Well, on page 105, you talk about something else relatable, the tension between faith and doubt and the reliance on one another. I assume you still doubt, but I wonder if...
No, I'm actually good now.
I wonder how the doubt is the same or different as it was at the time of the book.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Thank you, Melanie. It's like, I think where it's the same and different is, I think the problem with faith and doubt is it supposes that they happen at different times, if that makes sense. Like, I can be in a place of faith, in a place of trust in God, and also in a place of doubt, and also working through that. I know that, say, you can't doubt and trust God at the same time, but it's not like I'm actively doubting. But then the other thing I would say is as I have grown in my faith, my doubt, I am able to offer a counterpunch sooner. And I also will say and I think this is possibly also the result of therapy, super helpful, but it's like, okay, you know what? My mind is going to all the terrible things, but when have all the terrible things ever been true? You know, but it's also then, your mind also then goes to the you know, it's, I contain multitudes. But, yeah, I think to the Sufjan point, I'm going to promote him, definitely, if you've never listened. He has a great song called Vito's Ordination Song. And it's written from the perspective of God to this guy. And it says, rest in my arms, sleep in my bed, there's a design. And so I think that now there's a lot less striving that comes with the doubts. And just like, I'm doubting. Help me not to doubt. Does that answer?
Yep.
Glorious, absolutely.
Any other questions?
I will be answering what we're all thinking. Oh, so good.
What are you working on next?
Very good, thank you. I'm working on a couple things. One of the things that I'm working on is I am working on that play. That play that I wrote for my thesis. I kind of unlocked it in a way, and so I have been writing that and working on that recently. I have had the idea for a young adult novel in my head since I was a young adult. And I unlocked it, and not to play the same tune, but it was something dealing with time travel. It was a time travel thing, and where I say not the same tune is, I realized that disability would be in that, brain injury would be in that, the desire to just go back would be in that. So I'm working on that, but also, writing a million different, starting different things, but those are probably the two ones. Yes.
What would you say is probably your most rewarding conversation, maybe, or experience you've had with some of your students talking about, your story, traumatic brain injury, et cetera, the past couple of years?
I would say two come to mind. The first one is a student recently said that my sharing of working on this and getting this published and talking about how hard it was and the struggles with it encouraged them to write their own. That was incredible, and I will never forget this student. I had a student, she actually tagged me on LinkedIn that she just graduated. She transferred from Kennesaw to Georgia. Not a knock on Kennesaw. Kennesaw didn't have what she wanted. And let me not insult my employer. Kennesaw's a great place. But she just graduated, and she had tagged me on the post. And I'll never forget her because she gave me a letter that said, "Thank you for helping me love myself." And she was a brain injury survivor. And she was super insecure and she incredibly intelligent, incredibly capable, incredible student. She graduated, I'm sure with an excellent GPA. I had her for my class. She got all A's. But, that's the talk about story. The story she told herself was something different. And so for her to say that I helped her love herself, oh my gosh, that meant everything. Yeah.
If I could ask one more question, I don't mean to keep doing
No,
it.
you actually, limit has been, no.
I lived with him 2 years, and one of his roommates, so that's part of the reason why. But one of the things I've always loved about Will is he's always had the capacity to step outside of himself. And I'll just say this is a vulnerable moment, but Will not only is a great writer, a playwright, he's a great director too. I still remember it was a play written, I think, by someone else, but I know that he directed it, and it was probably one of the best little synopsises of Southern culture that I've ever seen. It was on 2 competing funeral homes. And I just wanted to say that I think, Will, to borrow a term from Oglethorpe and Adam Smith, do you think that your skills with your impartial spectator really help you and able to access other people's stories and help them convey those stories in an effective way?
Yeah, I would say that I think that part of teaching is doing that. It was really, I'll say this, I'm gonna give a shout out to I call him my playwriting Obi-Wan. Ronan Moon is a professor at Boston University. I was very frustrated with him at first when he said this, but then I now realize that this is the best piece of wisdom I could have gotten. I don't remember what the play was or what I had written or tried to write. And I was like, well, here's what I'm trying to say. Here's my message. And Ronan, and for his sake, I won't do his Irish accent, but it's magical. He said, I hear what you want to say, but this is what your play is about. And I think part of the teaching, not in those same direct ways of saying it, but is helping a student realize, I think this is the story you're trying to tell. Because I think for that instance, for me, I think a lot of students put up what I'm trying to do as a way to not be vulnerable with what the story they're really telling, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Will.
You're direct.
No, you're good. I told you at the beginning about the moderation. Yes.
Well, how is your social media presence? It was pretty prominent.
Yeah. Well, it's actually why I wrote this book, to get my social media. My goal is to be an influencer. No, it is. It's incredible. What's crazy to me is I went from, and I got on Instagram just for creating this, this platform. I got up. I think I'm at 4,050 followers, Yeah, and it happened, but it happened as a result of trying to build this platform. But then what actually happened as a result, and this is what was great about it, is that I actually grew to love creating the content for my audience, many of whom are brain injury and stroke survivors. So yeah, I think my social media has been a blessing. I wish I could like flash to like, don't forget to like and subscribe. But no, I think the thing that I have been happy with the social media is that I love it. But it started as this thing for the book to build this platform, and I now make it for the audience. What I mean is to help them rather than to serve me in any way.
Well, can I interject and give you a little bit more to your answer, since this gentleman asked what can the audience do? As two educators sitting up there, I'm going to remind you about the 3 R's. In this case, of course, you need to buy the book, but you need to read the book, you need to review the book, positively, of course, and you need to recommend the book. So you want to know what you can do to help? The 3 R's. What were they? You're going to read the book, you're going to review the book, and you're going to recommend the book. And don't just hand your neighbor your book, buy your neighbor. Because that's how they build their audience, that's how publishers notice them, and yes, that's how they get more buys and points and all of that stuff on their accounts. So,
And buy your neighbor your book today. Thank you.
So we have time for maybe one more question. Or if you had one more.
Sure, I'll be glad to, yeah.
Okay.
One of my questions was about the intersections of the theme, well, various themes, and if there's others that were significant to you, if you want to speak to those, but the faith and the faith versus doubt, that question came up. The role of teaching and who you are as a teacher, and the degree to which your identity as a teacher and your identity as a writer, and those things relate to each other, who you are to your students, that came up. Family was another thing. You spoke into it a little bit throughout the way, made references to your parents, your aunt. We heard the echoes of Daddy early in the talk. So I was wondering if you could speak to that particular theme, family, the way that it came up in your book, and also beyond, like the relationship of those identities, family, and your identity as a writer. I was wondering if you could speak to that as well as any other significant themes in the way that they kind of work together with who you are as a writer.
I think family, you just couldn't help. Because I told the story of my accident, I mean, not only my parents and my brother and my sister, but my aunts, uncles, cousins. I mean, I think that, I don't know, did you guys officially take over the waiting room at Northfield? I mean, I was blessed. I mean, I'm blessed to have the family that I have, because they all showed up, and they came from all over, from Georgia, to show up. And I think just that's a feature of my life, that I'm blessed to have that family. And I think, the love of the family sustained me through this hard time. I think the sort of I guess for the teaching thing that I can say, teaching for a long time, and this is to the theme of where the title comes from. For a long time, I wanted to heal beyond my disability. I wanted to be like, people to be like, oh, and by the way, I have a brain injury. Like, oh, wow, I had no idea. Like, I couldn't get it, or anything like that. But obviously teaching, I have to be who I am. I have to embrace who I am. And I think like that was super helpful for this. And the idea of getting better, without giving too much away, is getting better is an idol that many of us pray to. Is, oh, once I get better. For me, it was once I heal, once I get better, then my life will be great. And then once I recover, and so, realizing that I will always have somewhere to go. I will never feel better until I accept that that's right now. And I think like that is probably the biggest journey of the book, is that place of like, this is better.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank you, Will and Chris, for being here today. We just gave them a big round of applause. Chris and Will be happy to sign their books, which you can purchase over there to my right. And thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. This was a great, wonderful session. But thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Great.
You do everything.